everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Mid-America PTTC podcast. As a reminder, these are meant to be short, yet informational, and designed to fit into your busy schedules. Before we get into the content, we'd like to thank our funder, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Quick note, although funded by SAMHSA, the content of this recording does not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA. I'm your host, Dave Clausen, and I'm the director of the Mid-America Prevention Technology Transfer Center. Today we'll be talking about the latest updates to the Substance Abuse Prevention Skills Training, commonly referred to as the SAPS. Now, I had a chance to speak with SAPST Master Trainer Dodi Swope. Now, Dodi is a TTA specialist for both the Southwest PTTC and with us at the Mid-America PTTC. She has a wealth of knowledge and is a very skilled trainer. If you ever have the chance to work with her, I highly recommend it. Now, without further ado, let's get into the content. I'd like to welcome SAPST Master Trainer Dodi Swope. Now, Dodi, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Dave. I'm excited to share the new updated curriculum.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, would you share a little bit about your background for those in the audience that might not have attended one of your trainings?
I'd be happy to. I'm actually speaking to you all today from my home in Worcester, Massachusetts, in the very cold, dreary Northeast. So if you're in the sunny Southwest, I hope you're enjoying that. My background is in education and health promotion and substance misuse prevention. I've been at it a lot of years. I was a member of the Center for the Application of Prevention Technologies on the Northeast team most recently. But my background goes way, way, way back to doing community coalition work and prevention in schools. I did have a clinical practice as a substance abuse treatment professional for about 10 years in the 90s before I came to the prevention end of the continuum. But I'm thrilled to be here, and training the SAPs and supporting preventionists out there in the world is one of my favorite things to do. So I'm thrilled to be here today.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Such a great deal of knowledge, and we're so glad to have you on our team and in our region. So we're talking about the Substance Abuse Prevention Skills Training Curriculum, but for those listening that might not be as familiar with the SAPS for short, would you mind just giving a little background on it? How long has it been around? Who is it best suited for?
Wonderful. Happy to do that. Yeah, it's got kind of an awkward acronym name. The SAPS actually was created back in 1999, and at that time it was a 5 full-day training, and it was called the Substance Abuse Prevention Specialist Training. In 2012, it got a major update in response to the changing needs of the field, and it became the Substance Abuse Prevention Skills Training, because we really wanted everybody to feel that they could access this information and go out and do good prevention work in their communities. So we changed specialist to skills because we thought it was much more about the skills. We also added the online component to the curriculum, and we shortened it by 1 day, which made it much more popular as well. So it was updated in 2012 in a major way, but then this last period of updates is the first real revision that the curriculum has had in let's see, that's 7 years, right? So it was time, and we heard a lot from the field about what they wanted to have changed.
All right. So for those listening, if you haven't attended a SAPS training, it's a great training. It lays a perfect foundation for your prevention work, and I highly recommend attending a local SAPS. Wonderful. So speaking of the SAPS, what is new? What's changed?
Yeah, great. As I said, Dave, so much has changed, and many of you out there listening to this today will say, wow, it was a different world we were living in 2012. So we really needed to do an update. We listened a lot to folks in the field throughout those 7 years. We got a lot of feedback from practitioners, both folks who participated in the training and folks who trained it. And it was really time to do a real complete overhaul. So that's what we've done. The core curriculum is still the same, but we really have updated and refreshed the curriculum so that it fits the new changing landscape that we all find ourselves in today.
I really love that we listened to the field. We got all that feedback from not just folks that have attended the SAPS, but also those trainers. Because for those listening, this training, it's for you. We're doing it and delivering it for you to build the capacity in the workforce in your communities. So your feedback is always valuable. We love it.
Absolutely.
And so, Dodi, I know a lot of folks ask about the SAPS online course, but for those that aren't familiar with it, would you sort of introduce it and how it is applied in relation to the in-person training?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I love about the updated 2012 SAPS was that they added this online component. And it can be, you can do the online component as part of the substance abuse prevention skills training, or you can just do it as your own online course to get some good basic information. It really covers the history of substance abuse prevention in our country. It talks a lot about how the work is done out in the field. It gives some basic information that everybody who works in substance misuse prevention needs. And it just kind of lays the groundwork and prepares folks for the course itself. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete the online course, depending on how deep you want to go. It's highly interactive. It's really a popular online course. Many folks were worried that somehow it was going to disappear. We want to assure anybody who's worried about that it has not disappeared. It's still part of the course. And Dave, maybe you can share with folks how we're going to access that online component.
Yeah, so with the Technology Transfer Center network, each PTTC region is allotted certain slots for their region. It varies per region. For those in the Mid-America region, I invite you to send me an email, and I'll be able to give you more detailed information on how to access that course. And I'll share my email in the show notes below.
That's great.
All right, so speaking about, moving from the online version back to the face-to-face, could you talk a little bit more about the sessions for the SAPS?
Absolutely. So the curriculum is built around the steps of the strategic prevention framework, which is something that has been really integrated in the field over the past decade. And it is simply a planning process. It's a strategic planning process, and it has 5 steps. And none of this is new to anybody who's ever done strategic planning. Assessment, capacity, planning, implementation, and evaluation are sort of the action steps in the strategic prevention framework. And then woven throughout each of those steps is cultural competence and sustainability. And one of the things that I think we have seen in this new revised version is that the flow of that content has been adjusted so that it works a little bit better for folks now. So cultural competence, it now shows up embedded in the building and assessing capacity step, which is step 2. And then sustainability shows up between planning and implementation, which is really where sustainability thinking needs to happen. We used to, in the older curriculum, it used to be at the very end of the training, and we'd always tell people in the field, you can't start sustainability planning at the end of your grant, you have to start it at the beginning, and yet we were modeling within the curriculum that sustainability came at the end. So we've adjusted that, and I think it really flows much, much better this time. But the SAPS as a whole goes over the entire process and walks you through in a case study exactly how to do this work in a community, and understanding that every community is different and they'll need to adapt that. But it gives you a really nice ground and framework for doing the work.
I always love trainings that incorporate a case study. For me as a trainer, that really helps show how the content is applicable at the community level. And I'll tell you what, it's so refreshing to hear you talk about cultural competency and sustainability being woven into all the sessions, all the steps of the SPIF as opposed to a separate entity, because those two right there, especially that cultural competence, that's the heart of it. That's what's really going to build the capacity and set the foundation for those relationships that will carry you through the whole SPIF process. So good to hear. So good to hear. Sounds like some great updates. Now, you had mentioned that the trainers provided some feedback as well. What's changed that the SAPST trainers might be excited about?
Yeah, so one of the most important things, and I think for anyone who's got an old beat-up SAPS curriculum and they're training it and have been training it over and over again, one of the things they're going to be really happy to hear is that all the trainer notes have been streamlined, corrections and revisions have been made, activities have been refreshed. There's still opportunity for you to add your own activities here and there, and those are in the trainer notes for where you can stop and do one of your favorite icebreakers or, sort of refresh, get people going and moving. So if your group is feeling a little tired, that's been really important. So that has really happened with all that trainer input. So all of those trainer notes are updated and they really make more sense. The other thing I mentioned before is that the whole curriculum flows so much better than it did before. The order of it makes much more sense. And then the other piece is that, as I said, the field has changed so much in the last 7 years that there's much more information integrated on emerging issues and in our own development as a field in terms of understanding how we work together across the continuum of care.
Sounds wonderful. I really like it. And I'm anxious to get the new materials out to the field and hear their reactions to the updated content. So what specific updates to the material, to the training, are there?
Yeah, so digging a little bit deeper, another thing I think both participants and trainers will be relieved to hear is that all the data has been updated. As we know, data can get old and stale, and so we've updated, the curriculum revisers have updated that epidemiology throughout the entire training. As I briefly mentioned before, there is a real focus now on understanding behavioral health as a continuum, so from promotion through prevention, intervention, treatment, and then on to recovery. We really have that broader view now, and I think that helps us do the work that we're trying to do across the TTC networks. It also focuses in on health disparities, so what's really driving the problem at the local level and who's carrying the highest burden. I think we've built that in much stronger in this new version. And then finally, I think that link, as you said, Dave, to cultural competence and how that impacts health disparities and how that makes your work fully sustainable and really meaningful on the ground has been really intentionally thought through. So I'm excited about the new cultural competence section. I think it's really gotten a major haircut and update, and it's much more appropriate to the days we're living in now.
Oh, I really like it. I really like it. I'm excited to get this out there. Now, with these specific updates, on top of that, did they add any new content or new material?
Yeah, wonderful that you asked that, because that's really the other piece, is that there is new content in two very specific areas, and I think those who are listening out there will be excited to hear this as well. One of the pieces of feedback we got consistently from both trainers and participants is, where's the protective factor conversation? There's a lot about risk factors, but we also really want to talk about the positive things we can do in prevention. And so evidence-based, research-based protective factor information has been included, which was not in the previous version, and that's terrific. The other piece that is really important is that we have added information throughout about the non-medical use of prescription drugs, because many people are working on that as a priority area, and the focus of the older curriculum was really underage drinking. And so it's good to be able to see how you can adapt in your training for the priority areas that are happening on the ground. And so that non-medical use of prescription drugs has come in, and some discussion about how you can adapt for the particular needs of the region or community where you're doing your training. And I think that's very exciting as well.
Gotta love new content. And I think that is a perfect highlight and testament to receiving the feedback from the trainers and the trainees, really driven by the field. I know I said I'm excited about this new content and really can't wait to get it out there. And so for those that are listening in the Mid-America region, Region 7 here, if you want to access the new content and download it so you can start training it, for those SAPST trainers, we've put together an online learning community where you're able to download the new SAPST content that we're highlighting today, but it's also meant to be a true community where you can interact with other SAPST trainers from across the region, ask questions, get input and insights, feedback, and share training tips with each other. We'll also be able to highlight upcoming SAPST TOTs, training of trainers, and also just SAPST training. It's really just meant to connect you, the trainers, throughout the region. Because, like I said, this training, this learning community, it's for you. And if you'd like information on how to access that, again, just send me an email and I'll get you connected.
Great. That's
all right.
Exciting too, Dave.
As I've been talking to folks in the Mid-America region here, a lot of them are asking, there's a new updated SAPS coming. What happens if I was trained in the old SAPS? Do I have to go through the new SAPS before I can start training with it? How would you address that, Dodi? What are your thoughts?
That's a great question, Dave, and we're hearing it as well throughout the country, I think. Everyone's a little worried, like, do I have to go back to square one? And the answer to that is no. The very simple answer to that is no. You don't need to go through a new TOT in order to implement this curriculum. As I said, the bones are really still the same. The flow of the strategic prevention framework throughout the sessions, the way they're broken down, the way the case study works, all of that is very similar to the old SAPS. So we don't feel that folks have a new methodology to learn, but I think they'll really appreciate this new, refreshed, updated version. Certainly, if someone wants to come to a TOT because they feel like it's been a long time, they're certainly welcome, but it's not a requirement in any way. So if you're a SAPS trainer and you've been through a TOT, you can pick up this curriculum and plug and play, and off you go. We're thrilled to have you use it, and we'd love to hear how it works for you.
It's the same old SAPS that you know and love, just with a new haircut, like you said earlier.
Little update. They got, what is that? That show about right? Getting a new look, right?
Total makeover. Still the same old SAPS we love. Exactly. No, I know that's the biggest question that we get. But for those listening, we may have left you with some more questions, and that's great. If you'd like, send me an email. We're here to serve you. I can either connect you with Dodi, or I'll be able to address the question. And again, my email is going to be in the notes below as well, and we'd love to hear from you. And I gotta give you a big thank you, Dodi. I know you're busy, and thank you so much for taking time to share this exciting news about the updated SAPS. I can't wait to get it out there.
Wonderful. Me too, Dave. I'm thrilled to work with you and all of the preventionists out there that are doing this fine work. We're excited.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.